His insistence that climate change is a global emergency and requires a response as bold as the Green New Deal. And his pledge for comprehensive immigration reform that would include a pathway to the 11 million undocumented immigrants in this country today. But what really sets Bernie apart from other candidates and why I have been volunteering for his campaign is his understanding of power. He knows that true progressive change always comes from below, that working people, when organized themselves, are the only thing that have shifted the status quo and uplifted millions of Americans. That is why Bernie is the labor candidate. Over the past few years, as we've seen workers across the country organize and fight for a $15 minimum wage, Bernie has stood with us time and time again. Bernie has shown up on picket lines with workers fighting for better wages, benefits, and safer pay. And across the state, as we've seen nurses, auto workers, students, and janitors fight for better conditions, we need a candidate like Bernie. Even as we're incredibly proud to see union density rise in Missouri, more than any other state, we need a candidate like Bernie. He understands that at the core of social movements are organized workers, which is why he's committed to banning right-to-work laws and doubling union membership his first year in office. His actions have earned our trust, his policies have earned our respect, and he has earned our support in the fight for presidency. Several months ago, I joined the Bernie Victory Captain program, which has already trained thousands of organizers who are ready to help Bernie achieve his vision once he becomes president. My highlight of the program was the first time I hosted a canvas. 41 people showed up to my apartment. They showed up to fight for someone they didn't know, as Bernie has invited us to do. They were activated, politicized, and mobilized, not by a person, but by a movement. The best part is that I know that I'm not special. I know that there are thousands more people like me who are opening their homes to 41 other humans to help us in this movement. I can think of no better indication of this campaign's commitment to grassroots organizing that they invited me, someone who's volunteering for their first presidential campaign, and a member of a union that is currently fighting for recognition and a contract from Washington University to speak at this rally. Every one of us has the power to share our Bernie story with a voter. There are less than 24 hours before the polls open tomorrow morning. Let's win Missouri, not just for all of us across St. Louis, but those of us across the nation and the world. Thank you.
Please welcome Bernie 2020 Missouri co-chair, State Representative of Missouri's 78th District, Representative Rasheen Aldridge.
When I say feel, you say burn. Feel. 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 All right. How everybody doing today? For those who don't know me, my name is Rasheen Aldridge. I'm the state rep of the 78th District. And I don't know about y'all, but on Tuesday, I'm so excited to go vote for Bernie Sanders. And let me tell you why. I love you too. And let me tell you why, though. Bernie Sanders is one of the only candidates that have been consistent in his message from 2016 to now. Bernie Sanders has been the only candidate that has constantly said we need to make sure no matter where you work, you deserve a livable wage. As one of the Fight for 15 workers back in 2016 when we protested debate, he was the only candidate out of the two that said we wanted 15. He said, I will make sure you guys get it because you deserve it. Bernie Sanders has also been the only consistent candidate that has says we need to make sure that everybody has health care. We need to make sure Medicaid is expanded for everybody, no matter your income, your race, your gender, your pronoun. You deserve it. Bernie Sanders has been the only candidate that says we must tackle our criminal justice system because we have known that no matter your zip code, no matter your race, you shouldn't be locked up 10 times more than somebody who does not look like you. Bernie Sanders has made it very clear we need to fix student debt because young people, too many young people, are going into college, taking on this debt, and then coming out not being able to find a job in their industry, and that's not right. You know, I could be up here all day and talk about how consistent Bernie Sanders been, but we all know he has been, right? Right? So it's very simple. We are 24 hours away from making sure that he wins Missouri this time, right? So outside of yourself going to the polls and vote, take a friend. Not just take a friend, take your family. Not just take a family. You see somebody walking down the street, ask them if they voted. If they didn't, say, I will take you to the polls, okay? We have an opportunity in this critical timing to elect somebody who cares about everybody and not the 1%, the 99%. So we know what we got to do. We got to get fired up. Y'all fired up? Y'all ready to vote? Or y'all ready to elect Bernie Sanders as our next president of the United States? We gonna do it. When I say feel, you say burn. Feel. Feel. When I say feel, you say burn. Feel. Feel. Not me, us.
Please welcome the Treasurer of the City of St. Louis, Tashara Jones.
Good morning, St. Louis. My name is Tashara Jones. I'm the treasurer of the city of St. Louis. But to my friends and supporters, I'm also known as the People's Mayor. As treasurer, a few of the things that I am laser focused on are poverty, income inequality, and closing the racial wealth gap. You see, both of my grandfathers fought in both world wars, and neither of them received the GI Bill benefits after the war. And even when they could afford to buy a home, Racist deed restrictions and redlining kept them from building generational wealth to pass down to their children and their grandchildren. Over 50 years later, even though they own homes for more than 2 generations, both of these homes did nothing but lose value, and my cousins and I are left with nothing because banking policies determined that my community wasn't worth investing in. Because of this and more, the median wealth of white families in America is 10 times that of black families. Let me repeat that. The median wealth of white families in America is 10 times that of black families, and it's not getting better. And 1 in 5 black families has 0 wealth or negative wealth. So what do? It's simple. We should root out racism, rebuild black neighborhoods, revolutionize the higher education system, make college free for everyone, eliminate student debt, expand Medicare for all, and pay everyone a living wage. See, this is the kind of radical change that will make the future better for my son, who's here with me today, my son Aiden, and this is the kind of radical change that will make the future better for all children, not for you, for me, for everyone. In the midst of these trying times, our neighbors may say this election is too risky to go with Senator Sanders. I say, hell no. Right now is not the time for incrementalism. And speaking of big ideas, did you see the stock market today? So you know what's going to happen, right? We're going to see some big banks lining up for socialism like they did in 2008 when they received government bailouts. So don't let some of the same people who supported government helping big banks stop from getting the government to provide the same type of help for working Americans. When I ran for mayor of this great city in 2017, I said I was running to change this city. Not polite, incremental change, I mean real change. And that's why Bernie Sanders is running for president. He knows that incremental change only changes the lives for a few. He wants to change lives for the masses. So I need all of you to do me a favor. Tomorrow's my birthday. It's my 48th birthday. And the only gift I want from you is a victory for Bernie Sanders in Missouri. Thank you. God bless.
Please welcome Missouri co-chair Cori Bush.
What's up, St. Louis? Y'all, this is amazing. Let me say this. This has been 4 years in the making for some of us. We've been doing this work for 4 years, and now we are here. I can't do this. So for those that don't know, my name is Cori Bush. I'm a single parent. I'm a registered nurse. I'm a community activist. And I'm also your candidate for U.S. Congress for this Missouri's 1st District. And I've been endorsed by Senator Sanders. So let me say, going back to 2015, I have to think about when I first started supporting Senator Sanders. right after Ferguson. Well, actually, it wasn't actually after. It was like towards the end of the Ferguson uprising. I remember I went to this event, and at this event, I remember being treated like what people were calling us. They were calling us terrorists. They were saying that we're the people that burned down buildings, and they were treating us like we didn't belong in this country, and they were stalking us and terrorizing us, and we were traumatized and all of that. And so I was sitting in this event, and this man got up and he started to speak. He was announced as someone who was running for president. And I just remember this man got up, and one thing that he said that struck me, I didn't even pay him any attention until I heard him say one thing. He said, because Black Lives Matter. That was in 2015. In 2015, he was saying Black Lives Matter when other people were calling us terrorists, when other candidates were saying all lives matter. He stood with us. See, back then, he was fighting for someone he didn't know. He didn't care about being popular. He cared about being right and doing the right thing. During the Ferguson movement, during the Ferguson uprising, we didn't hit the streets thinking that, oh, this protest is happening, so let me put on my organizer hat. Let me put on my organizer hat and let me come out and look special and try to get a name for myself. Like, that's not what we were doing. We didn't have that thought. What we didn't know was that we were about to make history. We didn't go out. We didn't set out to make history. We didn't try to make history. We didn't try to make a name for ourselves. We wanted justice for Black and brown people. We wanted justice for this 18-year-old baby that was murdered. So we were fighting for someone we didn't know. And people say, if I was born back in such and such time, I would have done this. Well, let me say this. When you're in a history-making moment, you don't know that you're in a history-making moment. So let me say, we didn't know we were making history. We didn't know we would touch the entire world, regular, everyday folks like us. We didn't know. So let me say this. All of you sitting here under the sound of my voice, we are making history right now. This is a history-making moment. So yeah, I know you tied your shoes the same way. I know you put your makeup on the same way and you fed the dog. I hope you fed the dog. You did all of that. I understand. But understand the moment that you're in. If we don't do it, only Missouri can make this happen for Missouri tomorrow. Only Missouri can make this happen. We're the ones that'll make change. We're the ones that will make history. So this is our moment. This is our moment. Black, brown, white, Asian, indigenous, immigrant, and descendants of Africans who were enslaved in America and first-generation refugees. This is our moment. Gay, straight, lesbian, bisexual, pansexual, asexual, trans, and queer. This is our moment. Young and elder, religious, atheist, and spiritual. This is our moment. The disabled, the misgendered, the marginalized, the counted out and pushed aside. This is our moment. The unhoused, the incarcerated, the out on parole, working class students, the poor and the comfortable. This is our moment. The undocumented and uncounted, unable to vote or unwilling to hope, the overlooked, the exploited, the movers, the breakers, the builders, the shakers, and the laborers. This is our moment. Teachers, nurses, farmers, veterans, store clerks, hotel workers, firefighters and service members, engineers and electricians, those unemployed and those retired. This is our moment. Artists, activists, musicians, leaders, innovators and organizers, cooks, janitors, servers, union workers, postal workers, and sex workers. This is our moment. Every single person right now who is grieving because they've lost a loved one by guns, or they've lost a loved one to war, or to drug overdose, or to suicide, this is our moment. to foster children and children in cages, the single mother and single father fighting tooth and nail to reunite with their babies, those living with mental illness and those burdened with debt. This is our moment. To the black women making 61 cents on the dollar, the black families who have had the just make it home safely baby talk, this is our moment. This is our moment. To the immigrant families living in fear of deportation, the trans person who avoids medical care for fear of discrimination or worse, assault. This is our moment. So, to you and you, this is our moment. To him, her, thee, and them, this is our moment. So let me tell you, let's say this is what we need to do. We have a choice to go ahead and make this history moment. So I know that some of you will say, yes, you know what, Corey, I've knocked, 400 doors like I'm a star. No, oh, thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you. But we're trying to make history here. We only have today and tomorrow to finish this work. Let me say this, it doesn't come back again. Tuesday does not come back again. We don't have Bernie Sanders running this race against this person at this time to take this presidency coming back again. So this is our moment. This is our moment, Missouri. We got to take it. So what we're going to do is, they already announced we have 6 shifts available. So we need you to sign up. I know you may be tired, but let me tell you how tired you'll be if we have the wrong person in office. So what is going to look like in 4 years? So we need you to kick in exponentially. I know you've done great work. We know you've done it and we thank you for it. But let's say this, we do not want to wake up on Wednesday morning or go to sleep on Tuesday night knowing we missed it by 1,000 votes. And this was the thing. Well, I got to go home because my kids, and I got to make it to the meeting and I got to do, no, what you got to do, what we got to do is make this happen. So we're calling on you. Every single one of you are important. Every single one of you have what it takes to help us meet this need. Even if you say, well, I don't phone bank or I don't canvas, you have something we can do. Pull on some folks and let's make sure people show up, and let's take this for Bernie! So now, the moment that we've been waiting for. The moment we've been waiting for. Some call him Amo Bernie. Some call him T.O. Bernie. I call him Unc Bernie. Our next president of these here United States, Senator Bernie Sanders.
Whoa. Thank you. Thank you. Whoa. Thank you so much. What a great turnout. Thank you, St. Louis. Let me thank those who have gone before, Tonina and the band, Alderwoman Megan Green, union activist Sarah Katz, Representative Rasheen Aldridge, Tashora Jones, and last but certainly not least, Cori Bush. Let me kind of pick up where Corey left off, and that is to say, all of you remember Nelson Mandela. And Nelson Mandela was one of the great freedom fighters of the 20th century. He spent a lot of his life in hard labor in South Africa fighting apartheid. And what he said in his lifetime, he made a statement which to me was extraordinarily profound and relevant to this moment. He said, everything seems impossible until it is done. Do you understand what I mean? Everything seems impossible until it is done. And what happens for a variety of reasons, and I don't know them all, but what happens is human beings end up accepting the status quo unnecessarily. We are told by Congress what our options are. We're told by the media what our options are. And sometimes we forget to take a hard look at what goes on around us and where we want to go as a nation and as a people. So what our campaign is about is asking people to take a hard look at America today, at the world today, and ask questions like, why are we where we are? Where should we be going? And let me do what no other campaign will do. Take a hard look at America. Today in America, the richest country in the history of the world, you have 3 people owning more wealth than the bottom half of America. In other words, we have more income and wealth inequality in America today than any time in the last 100 years. You got the top 1% who over the last 30 years has seen a $21 trillion increase in their wealth. Top 1% owning more wealth than the bottom 92%. Now, you don't hear about that much in the media. That's not what is going to be talked about because those are the guys who own media. They own the Congress. Today in Missouri, now am I saying Missouri right or is it Missouri? Missouri, all right. I know, that's a tough one. But here in Missouri and in my own state of Vermont, you got a lot of working people working 2 or 3 jobs. You got workers who are worried that they can't afford to send their kids to college. You got half of the older workers in America, people 55 or older. Do you know how much they have in the bank saved for retirement? Nothing. Now think about it. You're a 60-year-old worker in St. Louis or Kansas City. You worked your whole life. You're worried about retirement. You got nothing in the bank. Maybe you'll have $15,000 a year Social Security if they don't cut it. You're a working mom in St. Louis. Maybe you're a single mom. You're going to work today. And God bless the single moms in this country and how they survive. Don't know how they do it. But that mom, think of the mom. You're making $15 an hour. Where are you going to find quality, affordable childcare for your kid? Virtually impossible. You're a young person coming from a working class family. You want to go to college. You want to go to a trade school, but you can't afford it. Your dreams being destroyed. Or maybe you made it through college and you leave school $50,000, $80,000 in debt. You went to graduate school. Maybe you're a couple of $100,000 in debt. That is the reality. I grew up in a family, didn't have any money, lived paycheck to paycheck. I know a little bit about that. And half of the American people in this richest country in the history of the world, half of our people today are living paycheck to paycheck. And if you are African American or Latino, then you got a whole bunch of additional hurdles that you got to overcome. Then you got to deal with the racism that exists in the healthcare industry, the racism that exists in the financial sector, the racism that exists in education. So if you're black in St. Louis, if you're black all over America, the likelihood is, not always, but the likelihood is your kids are going to get an even worse education than white kids are going to get. So you got all of that stuff out there. And what is our job today? It is not hard. It's to say that within a corrupt political system where billionaires buy elections. Our job is to reinvigorate democracy so we have one person, one vote, not billionaires buying elections. And that means, as Corey was just saying, it means to reinvigorate democracy, we need to activate our people. A lot of people in this country, and this is a sign of a serious problem, have given up on the political process. They're out there working long hours for low wages, they're worried about their kids. They don't think anybody in Washington cares about them. And you know what? That's not totally untrue. So what our job is to bring people into the political process so that we can create a government that works for working families, not just the 1%. Now, this is hard stuff. And again, getting back to what Mandela said, we're not supposed to be thinking about where we want to go. We're not supposed to be looking at countries around the world who have already made major gains where we haven't. Give you an example. Question: how many major countries on earth do not guarantee health care to all people as a human right? Anyone know? All right, take a step back now. Okay. Now I'm going to end up off the stage here. How does it happen? I live 50 miles away from the Canadian border. In Canada, for decades, every person, rich, poor, middle class, goes to any doctor they want, goes to any hospital they want. If you end up in the hospital in Canada for a month, you know what is your bill when you leave the hospital? Yeah. It is, and by the way, in Canada, they spend half as much per capita on health care as we spend. You got it? So we are spending $11,000 for every man, woman, and child for health care. And yet at the end of the day, we got 87 million people uninsured or underinsured. We have conservatively and this is very conservative, at least 30,000 people dying every year because they don't get to a doctor when they should. We got 500,000 people going bankrupt because of medically related debt. You know what that means? Think about it. Think about a system which says, you go to the doctor, you're sick, you're diagnosed with cancer. You got enough to worry about. You're fighting for your life. And yet now you're going to have to fight to prevent financial ruin, and many people do not. To go bankrupt because you are dealing with cancer or heart disease should not be happening in America. And just look at the insanity dealing with this coronavirus, this very serious problem that we're dealing with in America and dealing with all over the world. Think about the insanity of a system where today somebody wakes up and maybe they think they have the symptoms of coronavirus. Yet they cannot afford to go to a doctor. What does that mean? So they're going to go to work and make a serious epidemic even worse. We believe that health care is a human right for every man, woman, and child. And we are prepared uniquely in this campaign to take on a healthcare industry that last year made $100 billion in profit. We are uniquely prepared to take on a pharmaceutical industry which in some cases charges us 10 times more for the same exact drug that's sold abroad. Give you an example of the irrational. I want to get back to this coronavirus, which is on many people's minds. Trump's people were saying just a little while ago that, yeah, we're working on a vaccine. Hopefully they are. But this is how crazy it is. We couldn't guarantee that when that vaccine is developed, they couldn't guarantee that people would be able to afford it. I mean, this is how sick this system is. So let me tell you, if elected president, everybody in this country will get that vaccine absolutely free. I mean, and should anybody, is that a radical statement? I mean, that is the most obvious statement that anybody can make, but you carry that a little bit step further. Last year, I went from Detroit to Windsor, Ontario, to buy insulin for people who were diabetics. I went with a busload of people who were dealing with diabetes. And as you know, diabetes, very serious problem. Do you know what the differential in price in Canada as opposed to the United States was for insulin, the same exact product? 10 to 1. So we will tell the pharmaceutical industry they're no longer going to charge our people 10 times more than others. And we are prepared to manufacture that damn product to sell it to everybody at a price that is competitive. Right now, I just learned a few moments ago that in New York State, the government there is doing the right thing. They are manufacturing disinfectant for hand washing to make sure that everybody will be able to get the Purell or whatever they need. And what they're saying is they are telling the manufacturers today to stop the price gouging, and they're manufacturing it. And we are prepared to say that to the pharmaceutical industry. Stop ripping off the American people. I mean, we finally need a government that represents working people in the middle class, not just large multinational corporations. That's what this campaign is about. Now, a lot of the media talks about, electability, which is an important issue. Everybody in this room, I assume, wants to see Donald Trump defeated. And the truth is that every American should want to see Donald Trump defeated because he is the most dangerous president in the modern history of this country. We cannot continue to have a president. I mean, you just can't have somebody in the White House who lies all of the time. Because then America, look, we can have differences of opinion on policy. But if you have somebody who is a pathological liar, then nobody believes what you say, which is a very dangerous situation when you're president of the United States. We cannot continue to have a president who runs a corrupt administration. We cannot have a president, and I would truly hope that some conservatives take a look at this. Look, we disagree on policy, that's fine. But you can't have a president who has apparently never read the Constitution of the United States of America. A president who does not understand the separation of powers in America. We are not an autocratic society. We're a democratic society. The founders of the Constitution divided up power, which was the right thing to do. You can't have a president who calls the media enemy of the people. You can't have a president who attacks the judiciary, who attacks the Congress. Now, Donald Trump may not understand democracy, but he's going to learn about what democracy is about in November when we defeat him. And people talk a lot about unity, bringing people together, and that's right. And let me tell you how we're going to bring people together. We're going to bring people together around an agenda that works for all of us, not just wealthy campaign contributors. We're going to bring people together by raising the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. We're going to bring people together by fighting for equal pay for equal work. We're going to bring people together by making it easier for workers to join unions, not harder. We're going to bring people together by rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure, creating millions of good-paying jobs. We're going to bring people together because you know and I know that when we have sane priorities in America, we put education at the very top of that list. And that means that all of our children, black and white and Latino, Native American, Asian American, are entitled to a high-quality education. And that is why we're going to triple funding for low-income Title I schools. And again, I want you to think outside of the box. Ask yourself a question. How does it happen that in the richest country in the history of the world, we got school buildings all across this country that are crumbling? Kids can't even drink the water in some school buildings. We have teachers who have been great teachers for 10, 20 years. They're leaving the profession because they can't make a living. They're tired of taking money out of their own pockets to buy school supplies. All of that, when we know there is nothing more important than educating our kids for the future of this country. What's important is not giving tax breaks to billionaires. It's to making sure that teachers receive adequate compensation. And that is why we believe that instead of giving tax breaks to billionaires and spending more than the next 11 countries on the military, we will pay our teachers at least $60,000 a year. And I'll tell you what else, when you talk about education, we have got to start with the premise that all of our people, not just young people, but all of our people, regardless of their income, are entitled as human beings in this country to get all of the education they need and that they want. Does anyone think that's a radical idea? You know, 100, 150 years ago, brave people said that they wanted a system in which all kids could get at least an elementary school education, a high school education free of charge. That was a major step forward 100 years ago. But right now, with the world changing, with technology changing, our position must be that we will make public colleges and universities tuition-free. And if there are young people who are good with their hands, don't want to go to college, we'll make trade schools tuition-free. And again, thinking outside of the box. If we could give tax breaks to billionaires, if 12 years ago we could bail out the crooks on Wall Street, we can cancel all student debt in America. Through a modest tax on Wall Street speculation. And when we think about issues that face our country, unlike Donald Trump, we understand that climate change is not a hoax, but an existential threat to this country and to the world. And whether it relates to the coronavirus or whether it relates to climate change, we believe in science. And we believe that the time is now to tell the fossil fuel industry that they cannot continue to destroy this planet. And that we will transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. And we will do that under the principles of a Green New Deal, which will create up to 20 million good-paying jobs. So put it all together. Put it all together. Just stop, think about a new America in which we have a government that works for all, not just the wealthy and not just campaign contributors. What does it mean? It means that in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, where there's so much work to be done, we need child care workers, we need teachers, we need more health care providers, we need to rebuild our crumbling infrastructure, we need to transform our energy system. We have an enormous amount of work to be done. It is not radical to say that all of those workers earn living wages. That all of our people get the education they need regardless of their income, not radical. That the United States do what every major country on earth is doing, guarantee health care to all as a right. That we do what the scientists are telling us we should do, aggressively combat climate change. What is so radical and extreme about those ideas? Not only are they not radical and extreme, they are exactly what the American people want. Go out on the street corners. That's our agenda. This is what the American people want. I'll tell you what Trump and his friends want. They want more tax breaks for billionaires, and they want to cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. That is a radical agenda. It is a radical agenda to suggest that we keep a situation going where 500,000 people are homeless tonight. That's radical. And our job is to think outside of the box. Our job is also to understand and I know in Missouri you have dealt with this issue, that we need fundamental reforms to a broken and racist criminal justice system. Again, think outside of the box. Ask yourself a simple question. Wealthiest country on earth, why do we have more people in jail, disproportionately African American, Latino, Native American, than any other country on earth, including China, a communist authoritarian nation 4 times our size? We have more people in jail today than China does. How does it happen? Let's think about it. How does it happen? Again, we don't talk about these issues. Today, as we speak, there are 400,000 people in jail who have not been convicted of anything. Anyone know why that's so? How do you end up in jail if you're not convicted? Okay, good. All right, this is why. You are arrested. Maybe you're guilty, maybe you're not. You're in jail. You cannot afford the $500 that you need for bail. You're poor. So you stay in jail. You may have to negotiate a plea bargain, which gives you a criminal record. Maybe you're innocent, but you can't get out of jail. You don't have a decent lawyer because you can't afford a decent lawyer. And the legal system is not providing you with a decent lawyer. 400,000 people in jail today not having been convicted of anything. And then you have a situation in America today where people are making money locking up fellow Americans. Do we really think we should incentivize large corporations to lock up more and more people to make more and more money? That's why we're going to end private prisons and detention centers in America. And we understand that if kids fall through the cracks, if there's a kid in St. Louis or Burlington, Vermont today who's dropping out of high school as a sophomore or junior in high school, kid has no education, kid has no job training, there is a strong likelihood that that kid is going to get into trouble or do self-destructive things. What we believe in is investing in our young people, making sure they don't fall through the cracks. Not that hard to do. So we make sure that our kids have decent jobs, decent job training, good education so they can go out into the world, make a living. Rather than investing in jobs and education, what we're doing now is investing in jails and incarceration. We're going to turn that around. And I'll tell you what else we're going to do. We are going to end the very, very destructive war on drugs. Now, it turns out that through executive order, President of the United States can legalize marijuana in every state in this country. And that's what I will do. It also means that we've got to work aggressively to expunge the records of those arrested. All over America, no matter what people's political point of view may be, people are horrified by the level of gun violence in America. My promise to you is that our administration will bring forth the strongest gun safety legislation ever proposed in the United States. We will fight for universal background checks. People who have violent histories should not own guns, including domestic violence. We're going to eliminate the gun show loophole. And we're going to end the sale and distribution of assault weapons in this country. As a U.S. Senator, I hear a lot of speeches on the floor of the Senate from conservative Republicans who tell us they believe in small government and getting the government off the backs of the American people. And I say to those hypocrites, if you believe in getting the government off the backs of the American people, please understand that it is women who have a right to control their own bodies, not the government. And my promise to you is that I will never nominate anybody to the Supreme Court or any federal court who is not 100% pro Roe v. Wade. Trump and his friends want to cut funding for Planned Parenthood. Well, we've got some bad news for them because we're going to substantially increase funding for Planned Parenthood. So here we are, one day before the Missouri primary. And as Cori Bush said a moment ago, this is an historical time. People don't realize it, but this is an historic moment. And it seems to me there are two broad issues that are on the minds of Democrats, independents, and some Republicans. Number one, which campaign is best able to defeat Donald Trump? And let me say without any hesitancy, our campaign together is the campaign. Now, why is that? Why is that? Why is that? And I see, I'm not trying to be self-serving here. I'm trying to be thinking objectively, all right? In order to beat, no, I'm serious, in order to defeat Trump, who will be a very formidable opponent, in order to defeat Trump, we need the largest voter turnout in history. That is just a fact. And here is another fact. The other fact is that our campaign is the campaign of energy and excitement. To defeat Trump, we need to bring what we call non-traditional voters into the political process. Now, I'm not happy about the reality, nor should you, that in our country today we have one of the lowest voter turnout rates of any major country on earth. Okay, it's very low, and I want to change that. But right now that is where we are at. Now, we need to attract people who often do not vote into the political process if we're going to beat Trump. That's just the simple political reality. Young people in America are today the most progressive young generation in the history of this country. Now, that is the good news. That is the great news, and we should all be proud of it. Let me tell you the bad news, to be honest with you. Young people vote in much lower rates than older people. All right? That is the fact. So I hope all of the old people vote. That's great. But but I want young people to be voting at the same rates. Now, every poll, and polls, you take them for whatever they're worth. Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're not. But what every poll suggests, and what every election suggests, we are overwhelmingly winning young people's votes. Our campaign is the campaign that in the general election can bring millions of young people to the polls. Which will not only impact the presidential election, it will impact Senate elections, congressional elections, governor's elections, all elections. And on this issue, Joe Biden is a friend of mine. Joe and I have known each other for many years. What Joe has said, he will support me if I win the nomination. I have said I will support him because we want to beat Trump. That goes without saying. But here is my point. If you are talking to working class people all over this country, who is better able to win their support? Joe Biden voted for the war in Iraq. I voted against the war in Iraq. Joe Biden voted for the Wall Street bailout. I helped lead the effort against the Wall Street bailout. Joe voted for disastrous trade agreements which have been horrific for the Midwest. Agreements like NAFTA and PNTR with China. I helped lead the effort against those terrible trade agreements. Over the years, for a variety of reasons, Joe Biden has been on the floor of the Senate talking about the need to cut Social Security benefits. I have been leading the fight to expand Social Security benefits. Now, my point here is not to criticize Biden. My point here is to ask you to think that in a general election, which candidate can generate the enthusiasm and the excitement and the voter turnout we need? So if you want to defeat Trump, which all Democrats do, a majority of independents and some Republicans do, we are that campaign. But second of all, what we also understand is that while it is absolutely imperative that we beat Trump, we've got to do more than that. We've got to transform this country so that we have an economy that works for you and you and you, not just wealthy campaign contributors. A government which says that what we need is a multi-racial, multi-generational, working class movement of people coming together for justice. A movement that says not only are we going to reform a broken and racist criminal justice system, we're going to reform a broken and racist immigration system. We do not believe in the demonization of immigrants. We believe in comprehensive immigration reform and a path towards citizenship. So what this campaign is about is bringing the American people together, black and white and Latino, Native American, Asian American, gay and straight. Bring people together, end the hatred and the divisiveness which Trump is promulgating. And it is about a campaign which not only defeats Trump, but tells Wall Street and the insurance industry and the drug companies and the fossil fuel industry and the prison industrial complex and the military industrial complex and the entire 1% that we will have a nation that works for all of us. We're not going to leave tens and tens of millions of people behind. We're not going to have veterans sleeping out on the street. We're not going to have kids with inadequate education. We're not going to have older people unable to survive on inadequate Social Security benefits. That instead of denying the reality of climate change, we are going to lead the world in transforming our energy system. So tomorrow there is a very important primary here in Missouri. I hope all of you will come out. I'm here today to respectfully ask for your support. I am here to ask you to bring out your friends and family. Let's have one of the largest voter turnouts in the history of the Missouri primary. Let's go forward tomorrow. Let's win the primary. Let's win the nomination. Let's defeat Trump. Let's transform this country. Thank you, St. Louis.